Welcome to Newsfile. It's 77 days to the 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections in Ghana. And what a week it's been. A week of a nationwide demonstration by the NDC to demand the conduct of a forensic audit of the voter roll by the Electoral Commission. And the party will stop at nothing until that forensic audit is duly conducted, even though the EC insists all anomalies detected by the Commission and those brought to its attention has been duly corrected. It is the EC's view also that the voter roll, as we have it, is robust. Well, there have been threats also of legal actions by some of the 11 disqualified presidential aspirants, and that's hanging on the neck of the EC as well as over what they say is unfair disqualification. Well, the chaos that also characterized the manual balloting in this digitized day and age is also so concerning, plus the voodoo mathematics surrounding the position on the ballot paper has begun, with the number 1 and number 8 gaining popularity overnight. And what has the position on the ballot paper got to do with winning or losing an election? We are not also worn out at all with the fight against illegal mining in Ghana, as scientists have become the latest to join the calls warning about the impact of the menace on food security in the near future. There is a 3-day continuous protest starting right now here in the capital, Accra, in spite of disagreement with the police about the routes to be used. Hashtag no to galamsey and still mobilizing to halt this existential threat is coming up on Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis program, live on the Joy News channel. We're on Joy 99.7 FM on your radio, Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, myjoyonline.com, affiliate across the country's 16 regions. We're on DSTV channel 421, GoTV is 125. I am Emefa Apawu, and I'm sitting in for your regular host, Samson Ladia Nyenene, who is away briefly on equally important national assignment. You're welcome once again. I'll introduce my guests after the break. Please do stay with me. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile here on the Joy News channel, also on Joy 99.7 FM, brought to you by Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, as close as a partner. MTN, everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. Also My Way, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. DPS International, where every child shines. Flamingo Paint, simply superior. Syntex Tank is strong, it's tough. And today, a number of issues on the lineup for discussion here on Newsfile. Like Samson would say, the vexed matters that need our attention today here. And on Newsfile, we always say that we place Ghana first. And there are issues that are concerning that we need to talk about. 77 days to Ghana's 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections. We saw that chaotic scenes that characterized yesterday's balloting, and 11 of these persons disqualified, presidential aspirants disqualified already, threatening legal action against the Electoral Commission. And of course, how come we are balloting in the digitized age the way we are doing it? And what exactly is the positioning on the ballot paper, and whether it influences a win or a lose? Number 1, number 8 have become very popular overnight. But let me start by bringing you sights and sounds from the EC headquarters yesterday. Some have already described it as concerning, or rather disgraceful.
Baumia of the NPP satisfied all the requirements and was cleared by the 2 committees established to do so. Mr. Kofi Akpalu initially had issues with his tax certificate. However, he was provided an opportunity to correct it, and the issues were resolved, and he was cleared by the committee. Mr. John Dramani Mahama of the NDC satisfied all requirements and was cleared by the committee. Mr. Bernard Mona also had incomplete particulars of supporters. He also used registered voters in a particular district to support the nomination in other districts. His form also contained varying signatures for the same supporters. and in some cases the same signature for different supporters. The committee was of the view that he be disqualified. Mr. Paul Perko, an independent candidate, had incomplete particulars for his supporters, and he also used registered voters in a particular district to support the nomination in other districts, and the committee recommended that he be disqualified. Mr. James Opong, an independent candidate, his statutory declaration was not notarized. Additionally, he used registered voters in a particular district to support the nomination in other districts, and the committees recommended that he be disqualified. Mr. Samuel Sapong, Ankara, an independent candidate, also used registered voters in a particular district to support the nomination of other districts, and he was not able to effect the corrections of this, and the committees recommended that he be disqualified. Mr. Niamudaku, the committee found that his forms were incomplete, and again he also used registered voters in a particular district to support the nominations in other districts, and the committee recommended that he be disqualified. Last but not least is Mr. Kofi Asamoah of the People's Progressive Party. He used registered voters in a particular district to support the nomination in other districts. Additionally, he had incomplete particulars of some of the supporters, and he was unable to satisfactorily correct these anomalies, and the committee recommended that he be disqualified.
On the ballot paper, MPP will be the first position. The second position will be GCPP.
Party pick number one. Deceiving the same bowl. The balls were not swallowed. The balls were in the bowl, in a transparent bowl. In a transparent bowl. Now you prefer an opaque polythene bag. The new Patriotic Party will not be part of that. Will not be part of that. Okay. Don't want this bowl. You want opaque polythene, and that is transparent. You want to make sure you don't have any.
Please, Mr. Note. You are talking about NDC. Why has NDC Joe? It's not supposed to be here. It's not supposed to be here. It's not supposed to use the book.
On the ballot paper, MPP will be the first position. The second position will be GCPP. The second position will be the third position will be GFP. The fourth position will be GUM. The fifth position will be LPG. The sixth position will be NDP. The seventh position will be CPP. Eighth position will be NDC. And ninth position will be APC.
Saying that we clearly made an effort to make sure the second round, at least some proper transparency was done. And all of us had agreed. But it was obvious that MPP clearly did not want to. That's why you saw, even though every single one of the, out of the 9, 8 people went and nobody looked into the box, because we wanted to ensure that no advantage is given by way of viewing and choosing what you want. But MPP, as usual, decided to do what MPP does, which is basically going against what you call norms, going against convention, going against agreements.
You go to Wakpaguri, there are people, look, and the thing is that it is like a shock. A huge shock. I speak to you, my campaign team is out of Accra. My manifesto team is out of Accra, finalizing the manifesto that we will present to the people of this country. Do you understand?
So what are you going to do now?
It's not an easy task.
Of course. So Bernard, what are you going to do now?
As I speak to you, my parliamentary candidates that I filed have sent their posters, and we are currently in printing the joint posters of me and my parliamentary candidates. You don't think that it is about me. It's not about me. So our lawyers, I wanted to go to the Electoral Commission this afternoon. My lawyers advised otherwise. Otherwise, the crowd that was going to, the people that are calling me, they want to join us at the Electoral Commission. Why would we subject our democracy to this kind of ridicule?
Permit an independent forensic audit of the voters' register and the Commission's IT systems, which we suspect have been seriously compromised. Number two, we demand that the Commission convene stakeholders for collaboration. The Electoral Commission should urgently convene a meeting with all political parties, civil society organizations, and key international stakeholders. We demand that the Electoral Commission will agree to publish the findings of any such forensic audit.
You're welcome. This is Newsfile here on Joy 99.7 FM and Joy News Channel. And we're starting off with all the issues that happened when it comes to the NDC versus the Electoral Commission, and then also the balloting, disqualification and explanations that have been given, and the threat of legal action against the Electoral Commission for some disqualification, amongst others. A lot to unpack this morning when it comes to that. But of course, the affirmative action was assented to, and I'm an interested party in that. And we'll definitely touch on it a bit before we get into the discussion for today. And I must introduce my guests. I have the full complement of my guests in the studio and also via Zoom. And I have Mr. Kofi Adams, MP, Boemen, Ranking Member, Security and Intelligence Committee, Member, Public Accounts Committee. I'm introducing him first because he was here first. You're welcome, Mr. Kofi Adams. Also joining me in the studios is Dr. Kojo Pumpuni-Asante, Director, Policy Engagement and Partnerships at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD Ghana. Dr. Kojo Pumpuni-Asante, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I also have in the studios Dr. Bosman Asare, is the Deputy Chairperson, Corporate Services at the Electoral Commission. You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's been a busy week for you. We'll get talking shortly. And also via Zoom, I have Dr. Angela Jamnabwaji, Chairperson, Civic Forum Initiative, joining us via Zoom. Doc, all is well? Thank you so much for joining us. I also have Bashiratu Kamal, Fellow and Council Member, Center for Social Justice, CSJ, also joining us via Zoom. You're welcome, Bash. You'd have to on mute so that we can hear you. But I'll start with the two of you for obvious reasons, and they can talk about all the biases and we don't care. But Evans Nimako is also joining us via Zoom, Director of Research and Elections, New Patriotic Party. Mr. Nimako, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good to have you. Well, Dr. Jamnabwaji, I'll start with you. Like I said, for obvious reasons. Let's touch quickly. I've taken 5 minutes out of the entire time, so we touch a bit on the affirmative action. Law, it's now law because it's been assented to by the president. And the most concerning issues are the issue about implementation, because we have fine laws in our books, yet the implementation is always the concern. Let's touch briefly on it, then we can go on.
Well, thank you very much, Emefa. Yes, I think you've nailed it right on the head. The law has been passed. The president has assented to it. We are happy. The question is, how are we going to get it implemented? Because it's in different levels and it is sector-wide. Okay, so it is a progressive kind of law, but it's the kind that you have to pay attention to. As Ghana, among the Committee of Nations, and the fact that many nations, even in Africa, have gone ahead of us in terms of affirmative action and ensuring women's participation in leadership and in the public services and in the public sector, I think we should put our act together. For me, that's the most important thing. Whatever we need to implement, some of which is already in the law, we must start doing so with alacrity.
Well, Bashira, I'm sure you have something to add when it comes to implementation of the affirmative action law. Can you unmute? Okay, I think we're having a little challenge with Bashira to microphone, so I would try and rectify that. The team will rectify that immediately. Then we can get into action now. But
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear now. Thankfully, we have a little bit of time on affirmative action. Let's conclude on that.
Thank you so much, Emefa, and good morning to your listeners and viewers. Good morning, Angela. I think that importantly is what government intends to do with civil society, who have been leading the struggle for the passage of this bill all these years. So if government positions itself very well, we should be able to have civil society organizations and different groups supporting government in the implementation processes. Because, for instance, if you look at the new act itself, it does give certain mandates to different sectorial bodies and institutions, like the trade unions, like Ghana Employers Association. How are we harnessing the support and bringing all these groups together to ensure that we are all collectively able to achieve it? If we do that, I think it will go a long way in helping us to achieve the intent of this act. Thank you.
Well, Kojo, we've been in this struggle with you, Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante. It's only fair that I get to hear from you as well on this. Really, briefly, let's touch on it. Concerning is the issue about implementation. It's been passed. The struggle has been on 12 years, but now that it's been passed, assented to, are we hopeful about implementation?
I think for me, the lesson from the Right to Information law is that if we are going to be successful, it has to be mobilized citizen groups, and how we position ourselves to ensure that implementation actually does happen. The same energy and effort that we put into getting the law passed has to continue. So all the infrastructure that have been put in place by citizen groups should not be dismantled. Basically, there has to be a plan to already start to think about, okay, how do you now begin to work with government to make sure that all the things that are in the paper now are translated. So I really like the idea, the AAB coalition, the Affirmative Action Coalition, for instance, how does it continue to work? To continue to be a coordinating center for all different groups to continue. I think that's the key. That has worked with the Right to Information, with the Right to Information Coalition, continuing to work even after the law has been passed.
Okay, that's good. So we'll get into yesterday's issues at the Electoral Commission after the disqualification.
Yes.
You see, that's the trap. I was hoping that you would say that you want to talk about affirmative action, and I got you there. So thankfully, you would want to speak about it, please.
It's a good law, and we have been so committed to this. I remember in 2015, 2016, this was really very ready and ripe for passage, but for the opposition, it suffered from the hands of some of our colleagues in Parliament that it was too short a time and we were getting closer to an election, and therefore they didn't think it should be passed then. So they opposed to it, and well, the Speaker then listened and it was set aside. The first Women for Gender and Children's Affairs, the then MPP National Women Organizer, Otiko Afisa Jaba, also at least continued the program for some time. Then it didn't see the light of day in the 7th Parliament, and in the 8th Parliament it came again, and at the point was withdrawn. I must commend Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker was determined at the point that whatever state the bill was, they should bring it to Parliament for us to work on it, and that whatever amendments needed to be done, all of us as Ghanaians, together with civil society and MPs, will work on it. So Mr. Speaker was regularly on this, and I'm happy. When it came, he actually gave priority to the consideration of that bill. Sometimes he sat, or even when he was alone, the two deputies were not around, he would take a short break and will come back and we'll have to look into that bill. And I seriously commend him. At the point, we did some reconfiguration of Parliament when the new standing orders came in. And the chair of the gender committee now came to the side of the minority, and therefore Honorable Ajwa Intoso became the chair of the gender committee of Parliament, and she is in the minority. So at a certain stage, you will see the gender minister, Dakoa Newman, who will have to move from her side to come and join the chair on her side, just to collaborate for the passage of this bill into a law, and the president has now signed it. What I can say is that I see a lot of commitment on the side of my leader, John Dramani Mahama, in terms of proper and full implementation. So the fear doctor has expressed, I can assure you that when John Dramani Mahama is blessed with the leadership of this country after the 7th December elections, we will not see so much of the challenges that the right to information bill, when it was passed, had seen till now. We will see a real commitment in implementing the issues that are found in this, in this act.
Well, I smuggled this issue into the discussion for today, and I'm sure that Evans will also say he wants to take on this. Dr. Pospanasari, I don't know if you also want to take on this. 1 minute.
I think just briefly, it's an interesting development in our country, and it's a clear indication that democracy in Ghana is now well entrenched, and we need to ensure that the implementation is carried through so that we can achieve the full meaning of the law. So I think it's a welcome development which must be commended by all.
Okay. Evans, I'll give you the final take on this. A minute, if you want to say something about the affirmative action and what your expectations are when it comes to implementing it.
Thank you very much. I think that is the way to go. And at this stage, we must not be too political about it, whether the speaker should be given the shine or the president. I mean, as a country, it is our own interest to ensure that we have a good representation of women folk in our political enterprise and across all sectors. It is not for any reason that the great philosopher said, when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. The New Patriotic Party and its government will continue to champion the cause of women. In the case of Kenya, for instance, if you look at the representation of women in parliament, there are specific seats for women to contest and be in parliament. New Patriotic Party in this contest, we have as little as 36 women in this contest. It's very minimal, and that's not what we need. A house of 276, we cannot, as we speak, vouch for more than 60 women representation, and that's not good for us. So for me, all hands must be on deck. New Patriotic Party will come on board at any point in time. Brad Kofi, this is not a platform for NDC's manifesto presentation. Okay.
Okay, let me stay with you now that we have to move away from that. Yesterday, we watched scenes from the EC headquarters after the explanation for the disqualification of some 11 aspirants. We'll talk about it. But I'll stay with you, Evans, really, on this. Direct question. Did you swap that ball with Kofi Apawu?
Unless at this stage you don't want to accept the comment from NDC's General Secretary, Honorable Fifi Koiti.
It's a question. You have to just clarify that for me. Please answer that for me.
The NDC sat direct opposite the New Patriotic Party. I sat Mr. Makmenu, Mr. Kofi Apawu, presidential candidate for a political party. Love New Patriotic Party, our presidential candidate, so much that when he had balloted for his position, he was swapped. I don't know where this is coming from, and we must not at any point entertain such idea or thought in our discourse. Not at all. Nothing of that sort happened. I think we must throw this issue into the marine.
But for you, the entire process yesterday and the chaotic scenes that we witnessed between your side, the NDC side, on this particular issue, balloting should have degenerated into the scenes that we saw yesterday. Most people have described it as very disgraceful.
Well, I think that those opinions, you cannot vouch for their defense. But for me, we went in to honor the invitation from the Electoral Commission. The EC spelled out to us the mode of conduct of the whole exercise, spelled out the rules of the game. At a point, our colleagues NDC decided to examine the balls that the numbers were going to be placed into. And so Dr. Maneboama, Director, IT and Elections, the General Secretary, Honorable Fifi Kweti, took time to examine all the 9 balls in the big vase. When they were done, and they did this examination based on the nature, the form, the character, and the weight of that small ball. When they were done, APC Dr. Yariga did same, LPG Mr. Kofi Akpaloo did same, and others also observed the balls. EC, before all the political party representatives, inserted the balls into the ballot papers into the balls, put them in a vase, and said that the picking of the ballot was going to be in 2 phases. The first phase will be to know when you ballot to be on the ballot paper. And the order of inviting parties or representatives to pick on their principal was order of filing. You are aware that the EC opened nomination between 9th and 13th. After New Patriotic Party filing, others also filed. And so we're the first to be called. And so they said that when you pick the ball, you open it and show your number. The New Patriotic Party picked first, and we had number 1. And other parties picked in 10. LPG had number 8, GUM number 3, APC number 2, NDC picked number 7. NDP was 4. Madam Ekeadonko was not around then, so CPP picked 9, and GCPP picked number 6. The only number remaining when the ball was open was 5. So in the order of picking to be on the ballot, New Patriotic Party was going to be first, the APC second, and in that order. After that phase, NDC, when we were just about to go to the second phase, said they want to examine the balls again. We yielded. NDC issue was that there was one ball that was unique, and that it has introduced some level of biasness into the whole exercise. They are not in a position to accept a different ball being swapped into the whole arrangement, and that they want the first round that has been done to be nullified and a new one done. And there should be an independent person to fold the papers into the balls to conduct that set of run again. And New Patriotic Party said, no. We agree that the EC has administrative arrangements of conducting this was, and this is not the first time we are in for ballots. But I said that because New Patriotic Party picked number 1, in fact, the General Secretary, Honorable Fifi, said that some leaks have been given to favor the New Patriotic Party, neither here nor there.
And that's not true? That didn't happen?
Never. There couldn't have been anything like that. In fact, we were so shocked that the EC sat and allowed the NDC to dictate the mode of conduct of the whole exercise. And so I will not describe that scene as chaotic. Yes, we exchanged our ideas on how the whole exercise must be allowed to flow. So when the second round came, the NDC observed the balls again. That particular ball they raised concern about was taken out. New ball was introduced for us to have 9 sets of balls to go through the second round. They said that the vase that contained the balls, the transparent vase, should be changed, and that they should bring polythene back, opaque polythene back, so that the balls will be slotted in.
Well, and these are stories that we've told, at least from yesterday. We watched it live as well. So we will not want to go through the entire process as you narrated, but at least some of the questions that have come up, you have, spoken to them. You insist that the NPP was not giving an unfair advantage over the NDC or the other parties for that matter.
I don't think any party president will say that anybody was giving unfair advantage. We all went through the exercise. Our position was that we will not sit for NDC who had come to to examine balls, and that if it is not their way, then the whole exercise must be seen as shambles. That we were not going to take. That we're not going, because we've been through this exercise. This was not the first time we're honoring the invitation of the EC to be part of balloting.
Okay.
You've come on behalf of your principal, and you must make sure that you are doing the right things on his behalf. And you see, he said, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands.
Okay.
Mr.
Nimako, let me go on to others. No, you have to wrap up. I have to go on to others.
Yes, let me wrap up. The EC said we must all come in with 2 people. NDC came with 3. At a point, that gentleman said he is the bodyguard to the General Secretary. Meanwhile, I saw the bodyguards of Dr. Ayariga outside the confines of the EC. And so, if you want something to be done in a way that it follows the rule, you yourself, you must apply yourself to it.
Thank you, Mr. Nimako, on that. Thank you. We are grateful. We'll come back again once we have a bit more time on this particular issue. But at least the other side is the NDC. So I'm sure the other guests will permit me to go to Mr. Kofi Adams on this. I'm sure the party is happy now that all the concerns that were raised yesterday during the balloting all resolved, because I see now that we are getting slogans around the 8. So it appears that you're happy.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and having had a bite at the affirmative action bill that we passed and which has been signed. Now let me take this opportunity to also extend some felicitation to persons who were involved with me yesterday in my constituency. Emefa, I drove all through to get here to attend this program because yesterday around 7 p.m. we were still in the constituency having some activities. My national chairman, Johnson Asidu Nketia, and his team, I salute you, the regional chairman, the chiefs and elders from Atonko, from Atakrom, from Guama and Aka, who came together, and the party supporters, the constituency executives, or I want to express.
I know you'll be in trouble if you don't appreciate them, so I'll allow you to do that. That's fine.
I have to appreciate all of them for the support they showed yesterday. You see, our concern has always been transparency. And at all time, we must make sure we are transparent. For balloting, I always believe that the position you find yourself truly doesn't matter. Because we've had persons occupy number 1 slots and have lost elections miserably.
But you've had some also there who've also won convincingly.
Well, maybe so far it's only, I think, only 1 person or 1 or 2 persons who have occupied the number 1 position and won an election. From 1992 through till 2020, for all the 8 elections that we've had, maybe minus the runoffs. Only 1 or 2 have occupied that position and won. Even for the first ballot of 1992, where President Rawlings won, he was not on the number 1 position. Yeah. Even that time, where I will say people didn't know even the party symbols that much, because the registration of candidates, the declaration of even the intentions of persons as to which political party they were going to contest on, and especially for us, where we had Progressive Alliance, and the decision of our founder to either be on NDC or be on whichever party symbol was going to be the key one, came in late. And he wasn't on the number 1 position. He still won that elections in the first round. So, as for me, I'm not one of those who is so worried about position of parties on a ballot. Okay. So if you rig, if you swap, or whatever it is that you do, I'm not so worried about that. What I want is transparency, though. The NDC today is very comfortable with the position we find ourselves, because all of us seated here will agree, if there is ever any number in the last 2 years have seen a lot of meshing by all manner of persons, it's number 8. Mm-hmm. It is either someone is saying, I want to break the 8, or others are saying, what are you breaking it for? For this useless performance that you want to continue or what? And the media is carrying it. The chiefs are talking about it. The pastors are talking about it. Imams are talking about it. Everybody is talking about it. If there was ever any number that a lot of time and resources have been spent on, then it is number 8. And so for a political party to pick such a number, you should be very happy that people, anytime they pick the ballot paper, will be attracted to that number. So we are so comfortable with the position God has given us in this ballot. We are not worried at all. The issues expressed then was the fact that, look, if you want to ballot, if you are not using electronic balloting, where you press a knob like the lottery people do, then, and it's going to be manual, the balls must all be same. You shouldn't have a situation where a particular ball looks different from the other. And that issue, once cleared, meant that. And also, the issue of opacity. In terms of balloting, opacity, when all are there and observing it and participating themselves, is the best way to go. You talk about transparency when you leave only the institution to do, and we are all watching maybe via other means, like the way maybe the FIFA or CAF draws are done. Mostly you don't take part, you watch on the screen and you see the thing is being done electronically. Somebody press and the ball drops and is picked and they say they are placing you in this one, box. Mm-hmm. They are placing this one in that box. They are placing the next one in this box. We are watching. So for this one, opacity was a way to help all of us. When you allow the one picking visibility to see, to observe the balls before picking, then there could be, you don't know, the one who brought the balls is a human being. He could communicate with you that, oh, for one particular ball, there may be some color somewhere that look for. That was why the people were arguing that don't look into the box while speaking. Just drop your hand, whichever. If you like, you can even spend 1 minute or 2 assessing it. Just pick one out. Unfortunately, our colleagues from the New Patriotic Party didn't do that. He has to watch before picking. No doubt about that. We've allowed it. Luckily, they didn't pick the 8, which is the most significant number that they have spent so much time investing in. We got that 8, and that 8 is good for us. Already, long before this balloting, we were talking about 3 shifts of 8 for 2024 elections. Now we've picked 8. So it makes it so easier for us. Mm-hmm. What I want to suggest going forward is that there should be some science behind this balloting, especially that we do not ballot for parliamentary candidates. The Electoral Commission should begin to add some science to their balloting. You cannot have a situation where a political party fields only maybe 20 or 50 parliamentary candidates. Then you give that party the chance to ballot with the other parties that have all candidates in all the constituencies or so many candidates. And when they have picked a particular position, because they do not have parliamentary candidates, when you go now to the constituencies, you end up now having challenges. So moving forward, we may have to be introducing some science where we will say political parties that fields parliamentary candidates in all constituencies be given the chance to ballot on the first.
Already, the smaller political parties and independent candidates have raised concerns about
and
the priority that you are giving.
And I'm saying that, but there should be science.
Okay.
There should be some science to the balloting.
Okay.
Especially when you don't. But let me finish my point so that maybe if he has any comment, I'm not saying he should comment to it now, but there should be some science.
Now. I want to go to the civil society.
There should be some science, because now that they have done the balloting at the national level, we have our leader, the flag bearer, at number 8, which is good for us. I love that number. But because the other candidates in between 1 and 8 do not have parliamentary candidates in a lot of the constituencies, you will be having a problem where parliamentary candidates will not have the same number as their presidential candidates.
Okay.
So some signs would have to be introduced and encourage political parties who want to be part of the first slot balloting to field candidates in all constituencies, or at least majority of them.
Okay. Well, I'll now box the issue about the disqualification of these 11 presidential aspirants, and then the scenes that we saw, or the issues that characterized the balloting and the explanation that was given by the Electoral Commission as to why these persons were disqualified. We have a list of things that ought to, the criteria that these persons ought to meet, but were they giving a fair hearing? Some of the things that have come up, they say they were disqualified unfairly. Dr. Boaje, let me come to you on this issue. I want you to box the two together so that we can actually cater for these two issues briefly. Then we can go on to the other panelists as well. So for you, were you okay with the things that you saw yesterday and the processes in this day and age that characterizes ballot paper, balloting amongst others?
Okay. In this period of AI, I think we are way, way behind. And it is not good that our two main political parties, we call them the duopoly, will continue to argue about everything. Okay? It is important that we come to a place where our main aim is to strengthen our institutions. And the more we disagree over basic things, the more we make them, the more we weaken them, okay? If we have something good to say to them so they can improve the processes, which we are doing now, we ought to do that. And we ought to do that timeously. In the past, many changes have occurred. There have been reforms that have stood us in very good stead in terms of our electoral processes. We are proud about these reforms, okay? Moving away from opaque ballot boxes to transparent ones and so on. But we are in the age of AI. We can't be choosing balls in black rubber bag. Ghana 2024. I think that needs to change. We need to have a conversation around it very quickly so we find the best means to do that. Secondly, I think that, the nature of our smaller political parties in terms of their ability to even negotiate their way around things, we have to have a conversation about what we do with our smaller parties. And now we have even complicated it more by having lots more independent persons who want to stand as independent without parties. What do we do with those, okay? The most important, or what you see right now is that they have a right to complain and they can't go to court. I believe that if they really feel that they've been unfairly treated, beyond petitioning the EC and raising the things that they felt were unfair, they can also go to court and have those issues thrashed out. After all, the courts have also helped us to clarify things in our electoral processes. They have managed to help us to set standards and so on and so forth. So we should not be afraid of using the courts for some of these things. The only thing is that if we can do it without going to court, that's even better still. The bigger parties must begin to also help build the capacity of the smaller parties, not by co-opting them, but helping them around issues that they feel they are being unfairly treated on. They shouldn't think only of themselves. Otherwise, the rest of us see them as the political class, okay? On some issues, they are united, and on many other issues, they are just fighting, even when they don't need to fight. They must also turn their attention on the smaller political parties in terms of building their capacity to become a force of a sort in this nation. With a duopoly, I think that we need to move forward. But even more importantly, to build our electoral institution. Every single thing we do to make the Electoral Commission stronger as an institution, we must all be interested in it and ensure that that happens.
Okay. Bash, how about you? Maybe briefly also on the process that we saw yesterday. What do you think ought to change? Were you happy with what you saw?
Well, it was quite unfortunate that we have to deal with something as disgraceful as this in the 21st century, like Dr. Boaje stated. But what is actually surprising is how we have all witnessed the EC progress through some manual processes into a biometric process, and we are where we are now. But we have not been able to transform some of the processes leading us to the biometric process itself, and then also the counting of the ballot and transmitting of votes and everything, the same way we do that, have not transmitted into all the processes, which is quite disappointing. So going forward, I think it is important for us to begin exploring new technologies to help us do this and make it easier. Because, I mean, we have witnessed the National Lotteries Authority do this on national television, and it's a process that could also be imported. We are in a country where we are witnessing student elections not going through what we saw yesterday. The trade union, organized labor has had a series of elections. We've not seen this happening because they've used processes that are fair and transparent, and which can also be used by Electoral Commission itself. So I don't think this is something that we have to clap for ourselves for, no matter the party that any one of us belongs to, or even for the two big political parties, that is the NDC and the MPP. What we should all be speaking about now, after what happened, is not to justify what happened yesterday or to try to shift the goalpost, but to look ahead of us and see what recommendation we make to the EC to ensure that going forward, we would not have such occurrences, mar the beautiful process that was supposed to have been yesterday. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Kojo-Pumpuni Asante, we've been talking about the 8. Kofi Adams mentions that 8 has become very popular. The 8 number, we've wasted a number of resources on it. They are happy with what they've seen so far, because I've been telling you about the slogans that have come up. Voting the 8 to break the 8 and complete its 8. I've also seen choose 8, break their 8. 8 is excellence, don't break it. And number 1, they say it's still possible, amongst others. But really, 11 of these candidates won't get to give us their slogans because they've been disqualified. And they say it's unfair in terms of the process because they weren't giving a fair hearing. Like I said, I'll give Dr. Bosman Asare the final word on all this because of all the submissions that have come up. What for you should change?
I think, first of all, I mean, I think sometimes we have to acknowledge that, you know, in these processes, there are always disagreements, and it's part of the process. And when those disagreements, there are a resolution to it, then it's good. And the fact that everybody is happy, it happened yesterday, today everybody is happy, we move forward. And that's a very important part of this process. And as we come and talk about other issues, it is a principle that we have to recognize. So for me, that is a very important development, that after all the disagreements, everybody's happy and we can move on. We take lessons from it. Because we've done balloting in the past. Some didn't have these controversies. Some may have the controversies, but there's a resolution and we move forward. There's an issue that keeps coming up about how we handle smaller parties, how we handle independent candidates. I think there has to be a bigger discussion about that. There has to be a bigger discussion about how IPAC evolves and so on to sort of fulfill its role as it was anticipated at the beginning. In terms of the nomination process, there's always a small window that is provided in CI 127 within the nomination period for corrections to be made.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge has always been that if you don't submit in time or early, then really the window for corrections disappears. And I've always struggled with the way the law is set, because it says, okay, you are supposed to present within a certain time, which means that you are allowed to bring it up to the 13th or whenever the Electoral Commission says you're supposed to bring it. Yeah. But at the same time, it also says if you bring it and there are corrections, you'll be allowed to address it. But if you bring it in the 12th hour, you don't have an opportunity to address it. So how do you reconcile that? And we've not managed to reconcile that. And I think most people get caught in that kind of phase. So I'm sure, I don't know the infractions that some of these 11 people, for the basis on which the Electoral Commission has basically disqualified them. But that is where you get the problem. And some of the court cases we found in the past has always been around those things, where it might be some mistakes, but it's just not time for it to be resolved. And maybe Dr. Bosman can tell us more about that. So we have to address some of that. Some of the others that will border on criminality or some other issues that cannot be resolved, those are other matters that are beyond correction and have to be resolved maybe at the court of law or so on. But it doesn't help the EC timetable. Yes. If these matters are litigated, how quickly are they going to be resolved so that if it comes, balloting has already been done, you have to start worrying about printing the ballot papers, completing the voter register, all of that. So it's not helpful when people are disqualified and threatened. So it adds too much problem to the Electoral Commission, and the quicker we resolve it, and I'm hoping that if these matters are going to go to court, that the judiciary is also primed to deal with it as quickly as possible so that we can have a resolution, and then whatever implication it has for electoral processes, it's resolved, and then we don't get into complications for our elections. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Dr. Bosman, a number of questions have come up, but really, before we get into all the details, I've not had so many balls on a program like I've had today. I've had a lot of balls today. But really, first off, did you use different balls for the balloting yesterday?
No, we didn't use different balls. What transpired was that before the activity began, the exercise began, we gave the opportunity to the parties to examine the balls. It was later on the NDC rep, Dr. Maniboma, indicated that he has noticed some differences. But before we began the exercise, everything was given. And this was done in the full glare of the media, all the political parties, including the independent presidential candidates or their representatives. So we believe that the processes were extremely transparent. So along the line, when the NDC rep raised the flag that he believed one ball was so different from the others, the commission decided that this was an activity we were undertaking for the political parties as well as the good people of Ghana. So if by removing that ball, the process will be able to continue, why don't we allow that? And then, the surprising thing is that we had 9 political parties going through the process. Each political party has a percentage of about 11.12 or so to get maybe the number 1 slot. And Doc indicated that some of the independents were even complaining, why are we not adding them to the mix? So when we finished and we're even doing the one for the independents, not knowing all of them were also clamoring for the number 13. And the independents are only 4. So I was even telling them that all of you want number 13 and you are only 4. That means 25% chance of getting it. And the political parties are actually 9 and they are fighting for a particular slot. So clearly, from the EC standpoint, everything was done transparently. As an institution, we don't exist for ourselves. We do so for the people of Ghana. So once the NDC raised the red flag, let's go ahead and let's make sure that we put the necessary measures in place. And we've noticed some people have raised concerns about the paper, the polythene bag that was used. It was an improvised mechanism.
In a digitized world like this, we are still doing manual.
In that particular moment, the NDC strongly expressed that no, that transparent vase may end up giving an advantage to one. So we had to improvise something instantly. And without that, the process wouldn't have continued. We recognize there are many political parties in our system, but we do also recognize that there are 2 main, and it's always good to ensure that there is some consensus between these two. And it's a major, I think Dr. Jamna Buaji mentioned it, we lack consensus on certain basic things. So the EC was pushing for that consensus. So although the MPP side did not agree, the EC made it very clear to them that if that was going to ensure that the process will be able to move forward and we'll be able to achieve the results for which we had gathered, we'll go ahead and use that particular mechanism just to ensure that we may end up with a very important conclusive process.
And more importantly also, is the EC considering moving away from this manual process and digitizing it like we've seen elsewhere?
No, I think this is something the Commission will certainly look at it, and I strongly believe that in 2028 it's going to be much, much better than what we've witnessed. And you know, everything was transparently done, but we've seen the issues that have come up. So the Commission will go back to the drawing board and will certainly look at it.
So the concern has been raised also about what then happens to the parliamentary paper, for instance. Is it the case that the MP's ballot will be designed differently so that the NDC can still maintain their number 8 spot amongst others? What exactly will happen?
Currently, the regime we are using hasn't changed. So as Mr. Adams expressed, that one is not going to happen at the constituency level. But what we do is that, I think for the MPP, because it's number one, everywhere in the parliamentary constituency, they are going to be.
Okay.
And I think what Honorable Adams has said is very, very important, because as a party, you want to project that everywhere you go, our candidate in that constituency, our candidate here, our candidates are occupying this position. So it's something, these are some of the things the parties can bring to the attention of the EC, and we'll be able to look at it.
We don't run a party list system.
Yes.
So, I mean, I would agree if that is, because I understand why the parties want that. They want recognition, but our system doesn't run
a party
list system to associate your presidential candidate with your parliamentary candidate. It's the parliamentary system is a completely different from the presidential one. So I think if we are looking at balloting at parliamentary level, it has to be a different logic, you know.
So that's science that he talks about.
Unfortunately, in 1992, for example, it was as to the time of what? Submission.
That's right.
So it varied. Some people even went and slept at
so that they can have the first slot. And the presidential was not linked to parliamentary because even the presidential was in earlier. Yes.
The presidential was earlier and parliamentary was later.
Exactly.
So it was in 1996 that we decided to bring the two together. And subsequently now we've decided that you don't need to ballot parliamentary at the constituency level. So once you ballot at the national level,
then it should apply.
Now the problem is you have some parties that do not have candidates in every constituency. So take it for example, in 2020, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo picked number 1. John Dramani Mahama picked number 2. So for all of us, it was 1 and 2 everywhere. There was no problem. Today, the two parties that have candidates in all the 276 constituencies, one picked 1, another one picked 8. So you go to a constituency and his candidate in that constituency may be number 4. Depending on the candidates that filed there. So you come to my constituency, only 2 of us filed. So I won't be 8, I will be 2.
Okay.
You go to another constituency, so there will be inconsistency as far as the NDC is concerned. That's what I'm saying.
Is this something that the Electoral Commission
must have science behind it. And because you close nominations before balloting, the EC should have the data that these political parties filed in all the constituencies. So let's give, like the way FIFA does, they seed some countries before they put the other ones in the seeded ones. So let's see political parties that filled candidates in all 276 or the 2 topmost or the 3 topmost ones that have close to the total number of constituencies. And let's ballot for them first. Since we are not allowing parliamentary balloting separately, then when we have done so, we come to the other parties that some don't even have parliamentary candidates. Some don't even have parliamentary candidates. They are just like independent parties.
But that's what we have to weigh.
So that's why we
But I'm sure it's something that the EC would look at going forward.
What we do is that when we undertake an activity, we do a review. And this is one of the interesting things that, and I share its concerns. Well, clearly, although the parliamentary elections are completely different from the presidential, what we've done as a country is that we have, as if we have merged them, and normally Ghanaians even think, but when you look at it technically, for the parliamentary, we are talking about 276 different elections. For every constituency has different people on the, but we've merged them. So it's something, and interestingly, if NDC had gotten maybe number 4 in 2020, this would have come up. So it's a good thing. And when we do it, it's not going to benefit only the NDC. In future, who knows? So it's something the commission, once this has come up, we will certainly pick
I've been wondering, now that you've picked one from here also, from the EC's own perspective, what are your key learnings from yesterday's happenings? We'll talk about the disqualification shortly, but the key learnings for the EC itself.
Well, in terms of the EC, in 2020, when we had the ballot, we didn't have the development yesterday. So we think that based on what has come, the commission will have to go back to the drawing board and discuss as a commission, then discuss with some of our field personnel, our directors, regional people, to look at what must be new in 2028. Because I've made this point that we do not exist for ourselves. We exist for the good people of this country. Anything that will go a long way to enhance, deepen and strengthen our structures, our democracy, we need to do that. So as a commission, we think that we had some needless distractions that were very, very destructive. Because everything was on national TV. And just imagine, just balloting for a position on the ballot shouldn't have degenerated into what we saw. So this is something the commission will go back under the leadership of the chair. We'll look at it and see what we have to do to make it far, far better in 2020.
Are you also dismissing the allegations about a possible swapping of a ball? Evans says that did not happen, but that's what people are talking about.
I don't think so, because I was sitting, where I was sitting was close to Mr. Nimakun. And I think after Mr. Nimakun, the TV will show Mr. McMahon before, and on my right-hand side, we had Mr. Fifi Kwete, Dr. Omane Buama. So I don't think, unless you are saying Mr. Palu doesn't want to.
We have issues with electoral commission.
Yes, we are getting to it. Yes, we are getting to it.
For this balloting, I want to tell my people that, look, we sent some of our best. Our General Secretary is not a soft person. If you remember 2008, when issues were happening, he was there. Our Director of Elections and IT, these are no mean persons.
I'm told you took 3 persons, even though you're supposed to 2.
They
will not sit there
for that to happen.
Okay.
We have issues with electoral commission, and I know we'll be discussing that.
Yes.
But for this one, please, let it rest.
Well,
look, the number 8 we picked is so good a number for our presidential candidate. We are so happy with it.
You are happy with it.
We are very, very happy with it.
But Dr. Bosman, the issue, 11 candidates are not happy. The NPP and the NDC is happy. They have a number, they have a position on the ballot paper. The 11 others, they don't have a position at all. They didn't even make it, and they have concerns about it. I'll come to you, Evans. I'm told you have you want to make a submission. I'll come to you on it. But let's talk about this 11. They say they were not giving a fair hearing. When this particular issue happened some time ago, at least, Dr. Papakwesi was disqualified. The Supreme Court ruling was about giving a fair hearing to these persons, at least, and then also give them the opportunity to rectify any anomaly or mistakes that they may have made leading to their disqualification. Would you say that happened in this particular process?
I mean, for that happened yesterday, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Mrs. Jean Mensah, addressed the press. And in her statement, she made it very clear that all the parties were given a fair opportunity. And all of them were also given the opportunity to do corrections. And when you look at the records, only 3 parties or so, 3 candidates didn't have to do any correction. For the rest, all of them were given. And the others couldn't address the concerns the commission told them to address. Well, from the commission standpoint, there are reasons why some people didn't qualify, and there are reasons why some people did qualify. And when you look at the evidence, anyone who wants to know why he or she was disqualified can reach out to the commission, because During the
shouldn't it be
presentation,
made public so that we all know?
Oh, the process. In the presentation, the chairperson mentioned almost all of them.
Okay.
During the receipt of nominations, if you remember, the chairperson announced that the commission has set up 2 committees, a technical committee and an IT committee, and they have different responsibilities. Some of them will be cross-checking the qualifications of the applicants. Some of them will also cross-checking whether the people who you have provided as your supporters indeed are at the right places they claim they are. Okay. And we put all these things together. That's why as a commission, for the purpose of transparency, all this information, we have them. If anyone wants to know why he or she was disqualified, I think the onus is on that person to write to the commission. I want to know why we disqualified.
They are not going to write to you. They say they are going to court. Are you ready to face them?
The commission is ready.
Okay.
On what basis did we qualify Madam Mekuyadonko? Did we qualify some of the independent? They went through the process. All their documentations were excellent. Okay. And the committee that did the work came out with the findings that all these 13 applicants have met the qualifications required by the Electoral Commission. Okay. Under no circumstance would the EC favor one person. No, we are not going to do that. Okay. And we cannot do that.
Well, the basis for qualification includes a running mate.
A running mate.
Yes, and with a number of them, at least, with the MPP and DC, a number of them, we know who their running mates are. Is it the case that some of them filed without the running mates? Because we don't know running mates for some of them.
It's one of the requirements. So the commission, next week, we are going to publish the names of all the candidates. Okay. That's what the commission is looking at, that. All the candidates as well as their running mates. So anyone who applied and all those who have gone through the process, they came with their...
They all came with their running mates. Okay, but it's not in the EC's position to tell us who their running mates are. But they're going to outdo it differently.
This is a public information. We'll make it available in due course.
Okay, Evans, let me give you the final word on this balloting and disqualification issue. I was told you want to make an input.
Post the 2020 election, the EC had a review session with political parties and other stakeholders. And some proposals came up. But the challenge we had with that arrangement was that because NDC did not participate, most of the issues could not be carried on for further consideration and implementation. But I remember very well that if you check the minutes of IPAC, you will see that MPP made a proposal that we wouldn't mind if in future balloting of positions on the ballot paper, all prospective candidates are made to ballot so that there will be no issue of political parties balloting ahead of the independent candidate, which became an issue yesterday. If NDC had come on board for us to address this issue unison, I think that would have gone away ahead of the proposal we are doing now. And I think going forward, maybe we can do presidential ballots and do parliamentary ballots at the district level, and that information will be forwarded to EC at the center. The New Patriotic Party is open. I mean, but this issue of trying to trace the development to suit a certain agenda, and I'm happy that now Honorable Kofi is saying that there are people who didn't sit for such activity to have occurred. Yes, so we were clear in our minds. We went as agents defending the interests of our principal. But it is not fair that where you have transparent order, where there is a vase that is open, where papers have been folded into ball and put into a vase, people will still say that within the operation of transparency, you must introduce opacity. Where is this philosophy coming from, Mr. Kofi Adams? Is that the way to go? We think no. I think that for NDC, if you look at them since they returned to IPAC, every issue that come up for discussion, they've raised serious concerns. Take it from registration of voters to transfer of voters to compilation of provisional register and even to now. So for NDC, if it doesn't suit them, it must not happen.
But it's within their rights to raise concerns if they have any.
Yes, it doesn't mean that you should take everything from the EC, hook, line, and sinker. But let's be fair. And let us not try to twist issues. I mean, so Fifi, Kote, and Omanebo Ama will represent their agent, principal. But Mark Menu and Evans Nimakon will not represent Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. And if you pick a number, you will have to swap with another political party. Where is this coming from? Should that be the conversation? I don't think this is fair. Okay. And we are not ready just to politicize issues. We want fairness to be done. And that's why we said that we're so worried that the EC having informed us of their terms of engagement will change positions and introduce this policy back. And Doctor is saying that it was in the spur of the moment and improvised.
But you sat and agreed for that to happen. Let me wrap up on this because we have other issues.
Just
30 seconds.
Just 30 seconds. You see, what my colleague Nimako doesn't understand is that there's a difference between transparent ballot box for dropping of ballot papers and a receptacle for picking of balls manually. The idea of making it opaque is to make sure that the eye doesn't see what the hand is picking.
We are talking about moving.
I am saying that the eye. No, we haven't. Well, we didn't move.
And then we
didn't do digitization yesterday. We were doing manual. So the idea of opacity is to make sure that the eye doesn't see what the hand is speaking. That's why you turn your eye away from it. Well, and that's why some people don't turn, and that is why Nimako didn't turn.
He didn't turn. Okay.
That was a worry because he was looking into. The whole idea is that even as you walk, you must not see the balls.
And your general sat for that to happen.
No, that was why they changed. That was why he was talking about they improvise in the balloting for the actual position.
Yeah.
But in balloting, as to who picks first, the order of picking, they use that box, including the ball that we challenge that it should be taken out. But the subsequent balloting, that opacity, to keep your eye away was kind of what? Factored in. So it is important for him to understand this and know the difference between a transparent ballot box for dropping of ballot papers and picking of balls for position on the ballot.
Okay, but we are all pushing for transparency going forward. But really, more importantly, you're asking for a forensic audit. This Tuesday, or last Tuesday, should I say, we are still in this week. Enough is enough demonstration. It hit the entire country, and regional offices of the Electoral Commission were petitioned, hoping to get that forensic audit. You're actually pushing for a forensic audit to be conducted on the voter roll by the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission insists that this particular voter roll they have is robust. All the anomalies that were in there that you actually even pointed to when it comes to Pusiga. Now, in the last few days, you've added Tolong, but they insist that all these anomalies have been, rectified. But since that demonstration, though, what has changed?
Well, I must say that not much has changed, but only to say that the statement the Electoral Commission issued post the demonstration sounded more acceptable than their previous posturing. You don't have a commission that has created so many problems to come and tell us that we should trust them in solving the problems that they have created. Here we had a commission that was telling us that they, as a commission, organized a register of voters and had plants and animals in there and used it to conduct an election.
But they've rectified that. They've explained why that
they
was
said,
the example
they said
was given.
They had a register with plants and animals in the Electoral Commission. This Electoral Commission. Bosman Asari and his people, Electoral Commission, they say they have a register with plants and animals in there. And that because we didn't see those plants, even when they saw it, they used it to conduct an election.
Of course, that's not what
but that's what they are telling us.
You know that's not what.
That's what they are telling us.
We all watched that press conference.
I'm saying that
reported extensively on
that is what they are telling us. That they had a register. They had a register with plants and animals in there. And the person who was speaking at that time was the director of electoral services. And when it comes to being director of electoral, you are so much involved. I've been involved in elections a lot, from the very basic level at districts through region to national. I've been involved. Even till now, when the Electoral Commission comes to Parliament to engage even at the committees level, I am involved.
Okay.
Even when they are engaging leadership always, they call me in. So I've been involved in their activity and I know what it is that I'm talking about. You see, there are processes that this Electoral Commission, especially this one, have told us stories that have turned out not to be correct and not to be approved and not backed by any science or any evidence. For example, when we were going to conduct the limited registration in 2023, the first one before just the recent one, they told us, first, they were pushing through Parliament a CI that suggested that, Ghanaians who qualify to register all have Ghana cards. And that they were going to push through a CI that says only Ghanaians with a Ghana card could register. Finally, when we went for that limited voter registration exercise, over 65% of persons who turned up to register happened not to possess Ghana card. So the Electoral Commission, per the constitutional provision that says they must expand access to persons to register, we're trying to limit this access by sponsoring such a CI. When there was no such evidence to suggest him. Recently, we went again for this limited registration. Again, a very huge percentage of Ghanaians who turn up to register actually didn't have Ghana card. So if
we're
you
not
trust
through the process to also acquire at any point.
You said?
And we're not going through the process.
Some had gone through, but it has not been issued.
Exactly. But they had started the process.
Some have started the process, the printing hasn't happened, and the issuance has not happened. So the Electoral Commission, not having all this, could not be sitting in the comfort of their rooms to be making laws that would have stopped persons.
So let's fast forward to the forensic audit.
Fast forward. Now you decide, first and foremost, you indicated per your timelines that after the registration, you provide the provisional voter register to political parties. The NDC, as usual of us, presented our hard drive. First date was not met. We reminded them. Second date, they didn't meet it. Third date, they didn't make it. Their own date, the Friday, they promised that they were going to do it again. After failing 2 previous dates, they failed it. Then, midday on the 19th, when exhibition was to commence on the 20th, they called us and handed us our hard drive with the provisional voter register.
At a later date.
At a later date.
Okay.
Few hours to commencement of the exhibition. The surprising thing was that, Emefa, to cut a long story, was that the register they gave us that we printed out or analyzed from the 19th August hard drive they gave us, in some of the polling stations and in constituencies was different from what Electoral Commission itself sent to the ground.
And the attention was drawn to this.
What they gave us on the 19th as a register to be exhibited was different from what they took to the ground when we compared. And it was part of the issues that were raised with the Electoral Commission when we requested for a meeting with them.
Okay.
That was one
What was
issue.
their response?
Well, he's here. He will
Tell me what their response was.
Then let me lay out all the issues.
Because
then
we don't have all the time.
Well, I know you do not have all the time.
Yes.
That's why I want to go to the other important issue. You see, the Electoral Commission lumped up transfers they did in 2020 with what they have done also in 2024 and pushed everything as transfers for 2024 election. This is a major, whether it is error, whether it was intentional. Then the worst part was where persons who did not present themselves to be transferred to the polling stations, and they have been moved from one constituency to another constituency, even in a different region.
How many constituencies did you find that in?
Well, so far we have found about 3 of such cases. But
which constituencies, please?
Which is the difficulty. I think Tamale South was affected, Tolon was affected, and then Pusiga was affected. Then you also have a number of polling stations and constituencies, especially in the central region. And you do know that we've had history of parliamentary elections being declared with 3 votes difference. Tema East, there was an MP who went to parliament. We were calling him MP3 because he entered parliament with a vote difference of 3. Okre, late Fuzitobe, lost that seat by 9 votes in the year 2000. He lost that seat by 9 votes. So we've had instances where persons have entered parliament with a difference of a single vote, a single digit difference. Yeah. 3, we've had 9. We've had 20, we've had 30, and so on and so forth. We've had 40.
Reason why you're raising these concerns.
So we are raising the concerns.
Let me take you back to that meeting you had with the Electoral Commission. They asked for some evidence. At least at that meeting, Pusiga had come up, and then they said he had rectified it and asked for evidence.
And I'm saying that the rectification...
Let me please ask the questions. Have you provided that evidence to the Electoral Commission?
Which evidence?
They were asking for evidence.
But the Electoral Commission itself have admitted those things. So what evidence are you asking us when you are admitting that it happened?
Mr. Kofi Adam, please indulge me. In that meeting or after that meeting, we know that the Electoral Commission asked the NDC to help them provide the evidence that you have of these anomaly in the number of constituencies. Is Emefa. I'm asking,
Emefa.
Have you provided that evidence as a party? Has that happened?
We raised the issue of Pusiga. The first response from the Electoral Commission was to refuse to deny such an occurrence. But later, they admitted that it happened. But the admission is that some low officer somewhere did that. And that is why it calls to the need to audit the system.
You have still not answered the question, Mr. Adams. Please answer the question and let's move on to
what evidence were you asking us to provide again? What evidence did you want us to provide?
Because you said it was widespread and not just
and I'm saying that
now you're giving me Tamale South.
How will
have
you know?
Given the
and I'm saying that
evidence they're asking for?
The only way is to audit the system.
Mr. Kofi Adams, you're asking for a forensic audit and not an audit as stipulated in the CI.
The problem I have with your line of questioning is that you behave as if we should go around and look for all the full evidence before an action be taken to correct a wrong that has been identified.
My line of questioning,
if you have been able to identify a wrong
on the agreement you had with the Electoral Commission.
We did not have any agreement with them.
Did you not say
we did not have that agreement with them? Okay. We told them we are prepared to collaborate with them, but we are requesting for
an audit. So what's been the level of that collaboration?
I'm saying that our request is that there should be an audit, an independent body be brought in with the presence of political parties for auditing to be done. We should do a forensic audit of the system. We should also audit the voter activities, and we should also re-exhibit so that persons with the kind of awareness that has been created now, persons will be much more interested today to go and check their names than it happened. Okay. Don't forget that the exhibition, the Electoral Commission themselves admit that the turnout was so low, so low, so a lot of persons didn't even go. So we can be talking about many other things that will be in there, but with the discussions that have happened, I am sure if there is a re-exhibition today, much more persons will be interested.
Okay.
So people should not be calling on the NDC that the NDC should now go and do the work.
Of course, that's not been the only call, Mr. Kofi Adams.
But I'm saying that there were a number of them.
The EC should, collaborate with you. But let's
not just with us.
Yes, of course.
You see, the issue of the sanctity, the issue of sanctity of the voter register.
To take views from others.
I know that you take the views because you did not allow me to go through all the points that. No, you were insisting about we giving Electoral Commission our evidence.
I can't allow you to just go on and on without asking you questions. Let's not allow what happened at the balloting yesterday to happen.
We did not agree, but you said we agreed with them that we were going to give them our evidence. We never had any such agreement with the Electoral Commission.
Thank you.
So don't say we agree with them and we backed out.
There was no point that you said you were going to provide evidence.
I'm saying that we never said so. They were the ones that were asking and we said, no, we can't trust you. These are our 3 issues that we have laid out These are the processes we think the wrongs could be corrected.
Well, that's a different view you're giving us today, out of those who also attended that particular meeting.
That they agreed that they will provide those things with them.
You're not going to allow others
he's sitting here.
Of course.
He will tell you whether we agreed with them.
So let's allow that to happen. Let's hear from others, please. Thank you.
So you were putting words in our people and me. And that should not happen.
Really?
I won't sit here for that to happen.
Let's take other views at this point. Dr. Jamna, we've spoken to you after this particular demonstration by the NDC. Enough is enough. Mr. Kofi Adams has alluded to the initial response of the Electoral Commission. I have that statement here. The Electoral Commission says they've received the petition submitted by the NDC at the end of that particular demonstration, and the Commission wishes to assure the general public that the process of producing the final register is in its early stages. You had talked about earlier that the EC ought to collaborate, or some form of consensus should be reached with the NDC. Some have also said that if the EC has nothing to hide, what's wrong with conducting this particular forensic audit?
Well, for us at the Civic Forum Initiative, our point is that we need a credible voters register. But we don't believe in the kind of confrontation that is going on. Yes, as groups, as political parties, we have our rights, and we can even go on demonstrations as long as they're peaceful, to register our protest and so on. I mean, the NDC has raised cogent points. The EC has also raised cogent points about its timetable and its schedule for this election. And come December 7th, there's going to be an election. How can we go past this? For us, that is the most important thing. We think it's gone beyond the NDC. Some of the issues that they have raised, which have been agreed to by the EC, and which the EC says it has subsequently corrected, are for us important issues, but we can't make it just an NDC EC issue. Stakeholders must be involved, and stakeholders include other political parties. Stakeholders include the parliament, other civil society organizations, interested parties, even swing voters. Okay, it is important because anything that disenfranchises anybody, 5, 10 people, we know all of these things are very important. And voting patterns show you that one vote matters. So for us, it's important that we look at this issue from a non-confrontational stance. We need to bring in stakeholders to examine the credibility or otherwise. And this can be done around the table all over the world, including Africa, the sub-region, and so on. There are mediatorial approaches to these things. If you look at what the EC has said so far, including their recent statement, if you look at what the NDC has continually expressed in the media, for example, and I listened to Mr. Sami Jamfi very closely the last time, you would see there are points of convergence. Even the NPP statement says, in the first instance, that they don't disagree with any political party, raising credible issues for everybody to, to do something about those issues, okay? They have done so in the past. They don't oppose it. If you take even these three parties, you would see there are issues, there are places of convergence. Let's look at those places of convergence and look at those places that seem to have divergence, okay? And move past it. Why? There are many right-thinking people in this country, leaders of civil society, traditional religious leaders, and these things have happened before. This is not the first time that, a schedule of a commission can be, quote-unquote, interrupted to look at a complaint of a party. It happened with the VCRAC committee in 2016. It happened under Farijan. And when I listened to Mr. Sambi Jamfi, he said, we are not asking for a strange audit, okay? People think because we use the word forensic, it means something that's going to go on forever because we are looking at criminality and all of that. Bring your IT specialist. Let every political party bring their IT specialist. This is what I heard him say. Okay, let's get a few independent observers, and we have. And let's examine the issues. Okay, so for me, I think we should stretch it beyond the NDC and the MPP. Going on demonstration after demonstration, let's remember the context within which we operate. We are the only country in which we haven't had terrorist attacks, even though there are terrorist cells all around us and sleeping cells in the country. You know, we don't want to adopt the kind of posture that puts the sword into the baby and cuts it apart. If we all love Ghana, if MDC loves Ghana, NPP loves Ghana, we want to preserve it as a whole baby. We don't want a sword through that baby. And therefore, if we can sit around the table and say, you know, what is your point here and what is your point here? Let's examine it. We can take this forward. Come December 7th, there will be an election. Our hope is that we can get through this because it has been done before. This won't be the first time the EC is stopping, quote unquote, a process to examine somebody's complaints about its systems. And so we need to look at the issues very clearly as to what we have now. Pick the points of convergence, pick the points of divergence. It can be done around the table. There's no rocket science to this. That is our position.
Okay. How about you, Bashiratu? Of course, the EC agrees that there are anomalies in there, and the NDC has pointed to all these constituencies where there are concerns. Why is the EC not yielding? Shouldn't they? Bashiratu, if you have to unmute, if you can hear me. Okay, it appears that we do have a challenge with Bashiratu. Can you hear me, Bashiratu? Okay, let me come to Dr. Kojo Pumpuni-Asante on this. So 3 constituencies, one too many. At least the NDC has pointed to Pusiga, Tamale South. Now they've also added Tolong to it. And they've brought all these to the attention of the Electoral Commission. And the concerns are that there should be some form of consensus. They've had one demonstration on Tuesday, and they say they will not stop at that. They've given the EC 1 week to be able to do something about the situation. Then they will roll out their next line of action. Should we wait for it to get there?
No, I don't think so. I think, so first of all, I think we need to keep certain things in mind in addressing these things. One of the things I did mention was that these things are practical, pragmatic things that need to be worked through, because these things are not theory. I mean, you know, these are issues, practical issues that when they happen, you have to, you know, find a solution to and work through, because that's what elections throw up, these matters. But they are also a matter of law. Yeah. And you have to make sure that you follow the law, because if you don't follow the law, it can also be a problem. Somebody else would use that to also create another issue. And the law is also supposed to protect all of us. Because remember, what we are doing is not either maybe just for one party, or it's also for the citizens. It is also to protect their right to exercise their franchise come the elections. And it's also a stakeholder affair. So there's so many interests that we want to make sure that happens. I see 2 things that are at stake here, 2 issues. One has to do with addressing any anomalies with the voter register. Mm-hmm. So things that have been identified, like the transfer issue that Mr. Adams referred, which can be corrected. Issues to do with, as you said, names, missing names, and things like that can all be. Once the data is
transfers, they feel these are issues that they can't take lightly.
You know, that's, and I'll come back. But what I'm saying is that if the evidence is provided, you should be able to address it. There shouldn't be a difficulty in addressing it. The way the CI 127 is set out, you have the district registration processes, you have the exhibition processes. The exhibition process is set out exactly for that kind of process. Mm-hmm. The provisional register is given so that if people see issues, the parties see issues, they can bring it out. Mm-hmm. If citizens or voters go and they have objections, then it goes to the district registration process. Then they can, you know, go through the process to either delete names, add names when the approvals are done. There are adjudication officers at the EC who would add names and so on, delete names. So the CI provides for all of that to make sure that before we certify the register, all of that process is done.
Okay.
It's all done within law, because you have to understand that if somebody goes only naturally to go and do their own additions and deletions, that will be a problem. Remember, one of the chair commissioners who was removed during Charlotte says that was one of the bases on which he was removed, that he unilaterally did these kinds of additions and subtractions. So it has to be done. But what the CI allow us, 127 allow us, before certification, gives us enough scope for an independent, or what we are talking about, this expanded committee or whatever, to look and say, oh, okay, these things we have to address and all of that. And I think it's within the EC's capacity to put something like that together to address all those issues. That's a simple matter. I think the other matter is more the IT issue, which the Pusiga matter raised, which was that somebody managed to breach the system of the EC. And the EC says, okay, we've introduced additional measures to address that.
Yeah.
And the parties are saying, yes, that might be the case, but demonstrate to us that we can be safe.
Yes.
And the EC needs to do that, I think. And I think that one is the systems, how, and that's what Dr. Jamnabu is saying.
But how would the EC do that when they are unwilling to provide or give them what they are asking for in terms of a forensic audit? That's what they are asking
for. I think someone using the word forensic, I think confuses when people forensic, and I don't think. That's why I try to break it down more practically into two different things. One is really about certifying, correcting errors and all of those things, which I think the CI 127 provides the scope to deal with, and it can be dealt with. We have done it before several times. If you read section 27 or so of it, even within this deduplication process, you can set up a committee to deal with that. The IT one, we have done it in the past, where you can put together a committee to look at, because what is the assurance? Because yes, the EC has said, yes, somebody managed to actually enter the system, lifted an image from an ID, a laminated card, got into the system, and was able to move, transfer somebody. Yes, that's a breach. We have made sure that now it has to be a liveliness check and all of that. That's fine. But the parties are saying, well, how can we trust that it wouldn't happen again sometime next time? We need our IT people to give us comfort. The EC has to meet the parties halfway in that sense. Have a committee that's IT experts that agree on what the parameters are. Sure. This is not rocket science. Yeah. It has been done in so many jurisdictions. There's a way in which you can do it, because the EC is also protective of its systems. It doesn't want to expose its systems to external actors. So there has to be a way in which...
But it has the responsibility of being transparent.
Also. Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, that there's a way in which, there's a technical way in which that assessment can be done to give comfort to the stakeholders that this IT system is robust, without compromising the system, the security system of the EC. That is where it has to find that middle ground. But I said you have to separate these two things, because sometimes when you conflate it, it does not allow you to deal with these other aspects of it, which is for me the error issues and the cleaning of the register. And then it ties it up to like, oh, this forensic thing that, and then confuses everybody. So I think if we separate it, there's a simple way of dealing with that. And this other one, I think, as I said, both are within really the EC's capacity to address.
Okay.
I am really, and I'm making this point because I feel that for me, we have a very short time, very short window.
77 days now.
Yes, and it gets to a point, even with polling stations, we cannot add and so on. So we really need to resolve this pretty quickly. I don't think we are too far apart in terms of where we are positioned on any of these issues, to feel comfortable that we have a good register. Right from the beginning, all the parties had the records of the register as they were coming. Every day they were getting records. The provisional register has been given to them now. If there are anomalies, as I said, all of those things can be addressed, and then everybody can have the final certified register. Okay. And then we become all comfortable, and then we can sort out this IT stuff, and then we are ready. We can move on to other things. So for me, I think it's within the EC's capacity, within the framework of the law, for us to be able to deal with these matters and proceed. Okay.
Well, I see Mr. Kofi Adams nodding to most of the things that you've said. So in agreement.
That has been our call.
Exactly.
We are not saying we are taking over the Electoral Commission's work, or some groups should come and take over their work. Okay. Their independence is enshrined, but in the work that they are doing, let us also have an eye into what it is they say they are doing and whether we've corrected all this. Okay.
Well, Evans Nimako, we've heard your party's position on this, but I was hoping that it will be changed now, because it appears the NDC is not asking for anything strange. You should be happy that at the end of it all, you get a credible register, like you're saying.
Yes, Emefa, I'm happy that Mr. Kofi Adams said you should have an eye on what you are choosing, on what the EC seeks to do, so you have a very transparent, credible elections. But you see, Emefa, when the NDC presidential candidate at the studio was heckling you, I saw how uncomfortable you became. And that is how the NDC portrayed themselves at IPAC.
He was not heckling me. He was not heckling me, for the record. He was not. He was just making his point. He was not heckling me.
Okay, then that's fine. But you see, that's how they turn out in all discussions. But it's okay. We must move on. And we need to look at our history. I share what Dr. Kojo, for all that he has said, that we need to look at all these discussions within the confines of the law and see that within the EC's remit, what is it that we can do so that we can all move forward and get our elections conducted in a manner that all stakeholders will appreciate. I think that if you look at the history, the New Patriotic Party at all times have called for a credible voter register. And I'll take you back to 2012-2013 presidential petition. You saw the EC in the box, how they defended even overvoting and all that. We saw in the case of Abu Ramadan Ivansimako that the decision of the court that the EC must claim its register of those who had registered with the health insurance ID card, so we can have a clean register. We saw a committee put together by Madame Charlotte Osei, VC Accra committee, which recommended that there were about 580,000 people on the register who needed not to be there. So the EC should take steps to clean the register. So at all times, the call is on the EC to use its internal mechanism to clean the register. NDC stands now. They want a certain forensic audit. And you see, this is what is happening. And
it's the same cleaning they are asking for. It's the same cleaning they are asking for a credible register.
The NDC's Dr. Manubama is killing the leadership with jargons. And then that's not the way to go. See, the call for cleaning register is a mandatory thing captured in the CI. And Dr. Kojo mentioned, if you look at CI 127, from regulation 22 up to 27, where you get the certified register, it talks of how the register should be claimed. Yes, copies have been given to the political parties, provisional copies. We were giving our copy late, but the NDC went and said, we have been giving copy earlier.
And yours were not ridden with errors? You didn't have errors in there?
New Patriotic Party had our copy of the provisional register. We did want it. We printed the register plus that of the 2023 copy to all our polling stations for them to do a necessary audit ahead of the EC's exhibition. We had done that.
Wow. So it means you gave them.
So did you get it earlier? Did you get it earlier than the NDC?
They got it.
Just a minute. Because they got it on the 19th. When did you get yours?
So he said, get it from me. Get it from me. after 2020 registration, the EC did not do any until 2023. NDC MPP took copies of the 2023 register. New Patriotic Party, we printed the 2023 register. The 2024 one we did was an additional copy that came. So we added the 2023 and the limited registration exercise of 2024. So ahead of what the EC was doing, we had gone out already, checking from 2020 to 2023, those who are on the register. We realized that when there is exhibition of register, most people will not visit. Thankfully, the EC came out with a certain short code. You assess and you make some payment of 50 pesos. The New Patriotic Party developed one, free of charge for all voters.
It's illegal.
NGC this time, unless Kofi Adams to say that they did not develop
you have just put out an illegality that you perpetrated.
Oh,
yes.
Really?
Yes.
And under what law?
It's not about. It's more like vote buying.
You are
data protection laws. You found one. I have not said anything. He's the one confessing to the sin.
For voters to access the register.
Yes.
Let me make the submission. Okay?
Data protection, yes.
You see, the other issue was that New Patriotic Party has at all times made substantial contribution towards Ghana having a credible electoral system. You realize that from the CI 91, that was amended into CI 126, the issue of guarantor system, when it moved from the 91 to 126, they increased the number of guarantorship, something we've all been speaking against. Kofi said that if you look at the limited registration exercise of 2023 and 2024, majority of the people use Ghana card.
Okay.
I checked in the 2020 registration.
I didn't say majority use Ghana card.
It says they did not have. That's what he says.
They did not have. They did not have.
60%
Sorry,
did not have.
This is our first time.
Yes. Please, thank you.
Was their first time?
If you look at the 2020 registration, majority of the people use the Ghana card. And so I'm saying that the records can always speak to what we must be doing.
We need to be wrapping up on that, yeah. So, but in the interest of credible register, I'm sure that your stance will change, or it's still the same?
You have an issue that you've raised concerns in Fourboy constituency, in Nandom constituency, in Pusiga, and others. Submit what you've gotten to the EC for some consideration. You say no. And so at that point, how can you, Patriotic Party, jump onto your agenda to say that, yes, your quest for this credible register arrangement is in the right direction? You are only playing a certain reverse psychology. You will not yield to that.
So whether, but the concern is whether the NDC provides that evidence or not. At least the EC has a responsibility to look into these allegations or the concerns that they've raised, whether they provide the evidence or not.
As we speak, the General Secretary, Lawyer Kodia, has written to the EC that the New Patriotic Party is coming to engage them on our concerns about the register. But you see, on your studio, NDC come to sit at the studio, Lawyer Sami Jemfi, and make submissions and say that the New Patriotic Party's parliamentary candidate for our Wing constituency has done illegal transfer of vote from Accra to the constituency, and no fact check is done, and he runs away with it.
It's not true.
That must not be entertained. Not at all. That on this your studio, credible one, of course, you have NDC come sit and make allegations without basis and run away with it.
I'm sure that the presenter or the host of that particular show would have definitely put it to straight. Definitely would be done. But that's what you're saying.
But NDC is telling us
you can't do anything without it.
Okay.
So
let me bring in Dr. Bosman Asari on this, because in all this, we need to hear from the EC, at least. That petition was presented to the Electoral Commission. And amongst all this, we've been told about a stakeholder involvement in all this and the fact that you have the capacity. The onus lies on you. Why are you still waiting for the NDC to provide evidence, even if they haven't done it? They've raised concerns. They've talked about Pusiga, Tamale South, Tolong, and now I'm hearing about our Wing as well. A number of constituencies and issues have come up. Why is the EC remaining adamant if you indeed want to produce a credible register? Why? What's wrong with doing that audit? You've talked about the CI, but really, yeah, you've talked about the audits that is enshrined in this particular, CI. But what's wrong with giving us this audit that the NDC is talking about?
Emefa, thank you once again. Let me start responding to this by addressing certain concerns raised by Honorable Kofi Adams. In our press conference, when we mentioned that there were plants in the register, we mentioned to the effect that we've had an instance where people who registered, instead of their pictures, you saw plants. But we used the exhibition process to correct it. So we were trying to make the point that the essence of the exhibition is to do corrections, is to correct the register. And we've had an instance in the past. And Mr. Adams was also mentioning about the Ghana card. The EC was pushing for the Ghana card because we've noticed that political party actors, they cajole children, people who are not 18 years, to go and register as voters. The guarantor system has been strongly abused. And we believe that it's in the interest of the NDC, it's in the interest of the MPP if we have a credible register, if we have only those who are qualified to be on the voters' roll. And the thinking of the commission
just before you move forward, the Ghana card itself also adapts a guarantor system.
Please, let him speak.
No, I'm saying that there's a guarantor system in the card he thinks that he wants to rely heavily on.
But you have to allow him to make his point.
I was making the point that when we have that, the Ghana card, as you rightly pointed out, they've gone through a process. So, and we know for the Ghana card, it will be very difficult for someone who is not 18. I'm not ruling out that some people will do it. So the thinking of the commission was that if we could have that, it will go a long way, the credibility of the register we are talking about. Always, we have an instance where people who are not 18 years, they get onto the roll, and at times, through the challenge process, we end up putting them on the exceptions list. And these are people who may not have the chance to vote for many, many years. So the thinking of the commission is that, and this is something the commission has not departed from. When we finish this election, we will make sure we will push it. And we know that, as Honorable pointed out, once we have many people having the Ghana card, almost all those who qualify getting it, to make it easier for us. And let's make very clear, I think Mr. Nimaku or Dr. Asante was even talking about, in 2020, when we did the registration, out of the 17,027,000 people who registered, Emefa, we had almost 61% to 62%, almost 61% using the Ghana card. And this was 2020. 2020. But when we did the limited registration in 2023, we rather had the Ghana card being almost about 37%.
2020 you were registering.
2023.
That's the
2023. Then 2024 to the number. So the commission strongly believes that for those who are minors, they will probably will have the Ghana card. But because they are not 18, they won't go to the registration center with it. So Honorable is interested in a credible register.
Exactly.
Dr. Asante has been to all of us.
Everyone.
So we need to. So we at the commission believe that if we use the Ghana card, it will go a long way to strengthen our democracy.
But you didn't get to use it now, so let's talk about what we have now.
Now, what we have now, I know the NDC has raised concerns about the register. Let me say emphatically that the EC has called on the NDC to come to the discussion table. Because we believe that all of us are interested in a credible voters' roll. And the EC has maintained that we don't get that credible register when we do demonstrations. We can only get it when we judge or we sit at the discussion table. So we want the NDC to come to us. We want to engage all the parties because it's very, very important. You know, we've mentioned that the exhibition is a self-auditing mechanism embedded in our laws, which the commission has been using. Now, Emefa, when you look at the register we have, this is how we go about it. And Honorable Adams has been in it for many years. When people register, this is a raw data we've gotten from the field. It's a very raw information we've gotten from the field. And when we get that raw data, when we are about to do the exhibition, we now situate them in the various districts. We do that in the various districts. So that's when you begin the cleaning process. So when you talk about auditing, bringing in external experts, that process of cleaning, which is enshrined in the law, the commission has just started it, and we are working on it. And Emefa, one thing we need to also make clear is that the register, when we finish working on it, we will give all the register to the political parties. Mr. Adams raised some concerns about transfers. We've explained to the NDC that when we were generating the data, the software generated all the transfers that have taken place. Because this register was compiled in 2020. All the transfers that are taking place on this register. So it's something we've explained that you just have to disaggregate. 2024 is this, 2023 is this, 2020 is also that. So we had these cumulative transfers, and I know he will vouch behind the scenes that he knows the EC did not have any intention of doing any wrong thing to the people of Ghana. Oh, I know we do engage the politicians. So let me continue also by saying that the Pusiga incident, yes, the EC issued a statement that the district officer in charge we've suspended. And we've checked, we've gone through the register.
How about the director?
That's the district officer. Okay. We've suspended him and we've finished investigation.
But they say it goes beyond the district officer, at least.
No, the commission has done the investigation, okay, and we are working on it. We've gone through the entire register and MFA. We've never identified any of that transfer.
None in Tamale South, none in Tolong.
I think what Honorable was mentioning was that the people were in the Tamale South. Those people were in the Tamale South and possibly the Tolong, and they were transferred to that particular place. So let me say that for the Electoral Commission, we want all the parties on board. Because if there is anyone interested in the credible register, it's the Electoral Commission. I know the parties are equally. But if I made this point on one of your shows that in West Africa, with the exception of Cape Verde, Cape Verde's population is almost about less than 600,000. With the exception of Cape Verde, it's only Ghana that has over 54% of its citizens qualified as voters, and they are on the voters register. This is information that can easily be verified. You go to Nigeria, they are doing maybe about 44%, Cote d'Ivoire. So that clearly indicates that there is something the Electoral Commission in Ghana is doing very, very right. So regarding the NDC concerns with the register, we want to give them the assurance that there is no cause for alarm. When we gave them the register...
No cause for alarm, meaning the audit will be done.
When we met them, NDC highlighted about 5 main concerns. All the concerns NDC highlighted, including 3,957 persons whose names have been deleted from the 2023 register, we have addressed them.
The 3,957?
957.
They also talked about 2,994 voters transferred, to different polling stations.
That's the cumulative transfer.
That has been done.
That has been done.
How about the 15,000 plus unidentified voter transfer parts, potential issues with fake registrations?
That has been done. We've addressed all the concerns.
And the 243,540 previous transfers?
That's mainly the cumulative. That's mainly the cumulative transfer. We've addressed all. The only thing we've not addressed is NDC calling for a re-exhibition.
Exactly.
Then also calling for a forensic audit. Yes. But that one, Commission has maintained that when you call for a forensic audit now, it's very, very, very premature. Because the process of having the final register has taken off. Wait for us and let's do it. And we will invite you. If you want us to meet, our doors are open. You know, Mr. Nimaku said the MPP is intending to meet. Our doors are open because we don't do it for ourselves. Honorable, that we go to Parliament, they question us on a lot of things. This Electoral Commission, headed by Mrs. Jane Mensah, will never do anything untoward. We'll ensure that everything that is necessary, everything that is proper, we need to put that in place.
But it's been said that this posturing by the Electoral Commission, at least, if you say you have nothing to hide and that all that you've said you've done, at least in these corrections that you say you've done, just sit with the parties, just a minute, sit with the stakeholders involved, consensus. You've talked about stakeholder involvement amongst others, because some have raised the concerns that this posturing of the Electoral Commission is not building confidence in the parties and the general public.
I think in the press conference, which was addressed by Mr. Samotite, we made it very clear that NDC should come to the discussion table. Our doors are open to all the political parties. In the coming days, there will be a meeting.
What will happen at that discussion table? For which reason you insist the NDC must come before that audit can be done?
For what we are saying is that all the concerns you have, so that we'll have the opportunity to demonstrate everything to you that they have been addressed. In that meeting, Mr. Adams was not there.
Okay.
The NDC gave us the assurance that all the concerns they have addressed, they have identified, they will give them to the Electoral Commission.
They agreed.
They
Mr.
agreed.
Adams,
So maybe Mr. Adams,
you
and I remember
later on,
Dr. Tanko mentioned it on your program that they have decided they won't give until we accept the forensic audit. I watched it on maybe it
was on PM Express.
PM Express. So I did that. So basically, they used to give them the assurance that we know what you are saying, we've done them, but for you to be sure. And in that same meeting, the NDC head of IT identified one of the persons whose names has been deleted from the register. In that same meeting, we gave him the assurance, this person you are saying his name has been deleted. The person's name is intact. Yeah. So what the Electoral Commission is saying is that, Emefa, we are ready to meet with all the parties. And this is what we are going to do. So as we are speaking now, the cleaning of the register to ensure we use it for the election, that process is ongoing.
Okay.
And we want all the parties to be on board because Mr. Adams is interested in a credible register. Dr. Santu, who is not even a leader of any party, because of civil society and the interest of our country, is interested. Emefa, you are. And I think that it will be very, very bad omen on us as an Electoral Commission if we go into an election knowing that there are problems in the register when we can address. And that's what the Commission is doing.
I need to take a quick break.
Yeah,
we haven't taken a break at all during this program. Please allow me to take a break. Right. When you return, I'll give you the opportunity so we wrap up on this. And then Say No to Galamsey is on. That 3-day protest is currently underway. A lot happening on the ground. I'll take you live there as well. Let's take a quick break. We're right back. Please stay with us. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, made possible by Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, as close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. DPS International, where every child shines. Flamingo Paint, simply superior. And Syntex Tanks, strong. Tough. Well, we'll wrap up on this discussion and then we can get into #No to Galamsey. My colleague Maxwell Agbagba is on standby from that 3-day protest. I have a number of your messages also that we need to go through. But Mr. Kofi Adams and Dr. Kojo Pumpuni Asante would slaughter me if I don't give them the opportunity to wrap up on this.
Yeah,
so I know. Dr. Asante, let's wrap up on this.
Yeah, no. No, okay.
Okay, yeah. I want you to have the last. So clearly, we have concerns, and those concerns, as have been legitimately expressed by almost all persons here, except one or two, need some attention if truly we want to transact transparent, fair, and free elections. And there are legitimate questions that are being asked, because this is not the first time we are organizing an election, and especially under the biometric voter registration system. The first time we did so was in 2012. There were transfers. In 2016, there were transfers. Whatever software that was being used then didn't lump two elections transfers together. Then in 2020, we did new registration again, jettisoning what existed. Indeed, post that, there have been some registration and district level elections where transfers also happened.
Yeah.
They were not lumped up under the same leadership of the Electoral Commission. So what happened? That after the 2024 limited registration, when we conducted transfers, now the transfers of 2020 and the transfers of 2024 are being lumped up. There's a need for an assurance that the system will not create such fanciful dance on the election day.
Okay, but are you willing to go to the table? The EC right here at this table.
Of course,
has asked
if they agree to the audit for that, you have to go to the table before you can check all those.
You should come so that
we
prove to you that everything has been done.
It is not about us alone.
Okay.
It is about involving all. Even the MPP must come if they are interested.
Okay.
Civil society is interested. The Electoral Commission should be interested.
Okay.
We are interested. Then we all sit and look into it so that we will know that Emefa tomorrow, if you registered here, it will not be the case that you appear here because of the funny nature of the software. Your name will be found somewhere else. Okay. And if you are not the type that is determined to vote, you go to one place and you don't find your name, you give up. Okay. We don't want this to happen. Dr. So we need that assurance.
Actually, it's a common point I wanted to make, that I think given the time, and I know that the Electoral Commission is under a lot of pressure and is trying to work through these things, that giving the back and forth is an opportunity to consolidate the processes, so that we can bring other stakeholders in resolving this matter as we are doing the cleaning. Yeah. If the Electoral Commission can expand the engagement process, because Mr. Nimako also said the NPP said they are coming. Let's have one platform to clear this, so that we don't go back and forth. Everybody is on the same page, and then we can all move forward. Because I don't think the Electoral Commission has the time to do it separately for MPP, NDC, this and that. So that's what our appeal to the Electoral Commission to
I'm grateful, and I think you take leave of us at this point.
Well, I think as I'm leaving, I just want to make the point that the Electoral Commission is fully committed to transparency. And as you noticed yesterday, the ballot and everything was transparent. We are working on producing a very robust register that we will use for the 2024 elections. So we want to assure all Ghanaians and all the political parties that they should continue to also do their work, and the EC will do its best to ensure that we have a very successful 2024 general elections.
Just accept the audit.
Well, let's move on at this point. I'll take you live on the ground now, and my colleague Maxwell Apawu is joining us on the streets somewhere in Accra as the 3-day protest on illegal mining is the hashtag no to galamsey. Maxwell, what can you report from where you are? Has it been peaceful so far?
Well, Emefa, it's a bit noisy in here, but you're asking what is happening here at the protest ground. Well, we're currently at the Akwe J roundabout. You can call it a 37 intersection. Where I'm standing specifically is the Gifford Road. And the protesters behind me have actually blocked the road. They said they are not going to allow any vehicle, to move. And that is what we've been seeing since we came here about 4 hours ago. We have police MTTD officers also here on the ground trying to ensure the free flow of traffic, but it's been quite a daunting task for them because they tried to clear the traffic on the other side, and then the protesters tried to move to another part of it. Just about 50 meters away from where I'm standing are barricades, about 3 layers of barricades mounted by the personnel of the Ghana Police Service. Some of them standing very close to it. There are others also who are seated behind those barricades, changing shifts with those who are standing there, currently. The police has deployed drones and then cameras also to monitor what is happening here on the ground. Just about an hour ago, we saw some of the protesters taking down the campaign materials of the governing New Patriotic Party and campaign materials of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the Vice President, and the NPP presidential candidate, burning them right here in the middle of the road. Some of them saying that government officials are complicit in the galamsey menace, and they are doing this to register their displeasure and anger to press home demands, for a change. So really, that's what is happening here. You can see the gridlock is building up, and it's been like this for some time now. For the past 15 minutes, we have seen this massive gridlock in different parts of the capital. You can see some of the protesters here now, seated right in the middle of the road, saying that they are not going to move an inch. And this is part of their demands to push home, to press home demands for an end in galamsey. Hi, Mommy, what's your name?
My name is Nadenswa.
Nadenswa. Tell me, why are you taking part in this protest?
Because my grandchildren will drink this in 2 years' time if I don't put a stop to galamsey. It has to end.
It has to end now or never.
I don't want my grandchildren to drink this. I want clean water today, not tomorrow, not 2 years. Today, it has gone on for too long. It has to end. Galamsey, no more.
Government tells us that they're doing a lot, to fight.
They are doing what? They are doing what? They are doing what? We are the ones here. Where's the government? Government should come and tell us what he's doing. And then when we understand and we see the action, then we know what is what. No action, we will not go home. We will be here 3 days. Galamsey water.
Where did you get this? What it looks like?
River Pra. My son brought it for me. You want to taste it?
No, you can have it. Really?
You want to taste it?
This is from what? The River Pra?
Yes.
For real?
Fellow Ghanaian himself went and brought me. He's my son. He brought me my own sample to use today. Go and ask him. He went and got so many samples from so many rivers and gave me River Pra today.
Thank you for talking to us. Well, so Emefa, that is the situation here. More people, more protesters are joining. What is happening right in the middle of the street. Remember, they had wanted to do this at the Revolution Square, but the Ghana Police Service says that that is not possible. And now they've taken over the middle of this road, the 37 intersection, the 37 Akweje roundabout, and they've created this massive gridlock here in the capital, Emefa.
So Agbagba there live at 37, and that protest, that 3-day protest underway, and it's the hashtag No to Galamsey is on. And I have via Zoom Suleimana Isifu is a research fellow, Hans Rothenberg Institute, University of Hohenheim in Germany, and Director of Research, Center for Climate Change and Food Security. And the issue about, we've heard about water and how we may have to start importing water in the near future. And then also the forest reserves and how it's being depleted, and the concern about how we're going to have more deadly diseases like Ebola if we are not able to, rectify the situation. There have been calls for a state of national emergency on this particular situation. There have been a number of, ultimatums that have been given also. In the last few days also, we've been hearing about the impact on food security in the near future. Suleimana Isifu, talk to us. What are we missing? Okay, we would have to rectify that situation with Suleimana Isifu shortly. Once we do, we'll be able to bring, it looks like we have him now. Suleimana, can you hear me? You'd have to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Super, I can hear you now, Suleimana.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. You are talking about the food security, the impact on food security if Ghana is not checking the issue about illegal mining.
Yes, so on food security, we have to distinguish the issues into about two components. So the first component is about food sufficiency. And we are trying, for example, to map to see if crop production has been going down in the Galamsey endemic areas over the period. And yes, we've seen some decline. One palpable evidence is in the cocoa sector, where clearly we see that cocoa production is declining. Why? Because there is this concept of land use or land change use behavior, where people decide to convert their lands into ventures that they believe is going to provide them better opportunities or better offers in terms of economic value. So farmers are beginning to, for example, convert their lands into Galamsey areas. And in some cases, their lands have been taken over forcefully by the Galamseyers. And we've seen examples with Asha Juan and her gang, where Asha Juan used to take lands from people who were not willing, or farmers who were not willing to sell their lands to her for nefarious Galamsey activities. So in terms of food security relative to sufficiency, where we can depend on the smallholder farmers to produce enough to feed us as a country, there is a decline. And recently, if you realized, when there was this drought spell, and I mentioned this on one of your programs, that if you want to see the failure of a government intervention, it is when that intervention fails to come to the rescue of the country when the need be. Yeah. An example is a Planting for Food and Jobs. Planting for Food and Jobs was a brilliant idea. But I've always said that this approach to agriculture is not going to yield much. And it is not particular to the MPP, but if you look even from the time of since we gained independence, most, how do I call it, governments have been using the same approach. We call it the Green Revolution approach. And since then, you would see that usually food would come in bumper harvest at a particular time, a short period, and then it goes down again. And now when we had a drought spell, you see that just 2 months of drought spell collapsed our food system to the extent that government needed over 8 billion to be able to rescue the situation and stabilize the food system. Otherwise, Ghana was going to be plunged into famine. And this, there is no doubt, per our tracing analysis, there's no doubt that galamsey has contributed to this. So that is the first part.
Okay.
The second part is the food, what we have categorized as food pollution potential. That is the safety of your food system, right? So how safe is your food system? Does galamsey have the potential to pollute your food system? Emefa, the answer to this question is yes, because there are scientific evidence to prove that galamsey areas have heavy metal concentrations beyond the World Health Organization threshold in the soil, in the water, and then in some cases I've reviewed studies that have found traces in the food crops. And there is evidence to prove that plants have the ability to take up heavy metals like mercury, like lead, like arsenic, and all these heavy metals. So now the question is that there have been continuous evidence, or there have been evidence to prove that these heavy metals are finding their way into the human system, as has been demonstrated by Professor Sampini and a host of others. And I think 2 days ago, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, also issued a statement where they directly say that galamsey-induced cancers across the country is about 24,000 per annum. So it is now, the evidence is so clear that heavy metals are finding their way into the human system. Now the question is, how are they finding their way? Is it through water? Is it through inhalation? So is it through, for example, ingestion? Is it through the dermal system, that is the skin, by way of direct contact with the heavy metals? And that is where we need scientists who are epidemiologists to be able to help us to trace exactly where these heavy metals are coming from. Is it because the galamsey areas, for example, people are inhaling heavy metals? Or is it because people are eating foods that have been contaminated with heavy metals? Or is it because they are drinking water that has been contaminated with heavy metals? This question must be answered by epidemiological studies. What we have done so far is to focus on the food system and then ask ourselves, according to the Ghana Food and Facts data provided by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture 2021, and normally they will produce a list of districts that have that contribute to Ghana's food basket. So usually they'll provide you the data of the first 10 districts. So what we've done is, okay, go into the first 10 districts, look at those that are galamsey endemic within the first 10, and then trace or ask yourself, what could be the proportion of their contribution to Ghana's food basket? Bear in mind, Emefa, that the food crops have the potential of taking up the heavy metals. So we have developed an index known as the food pollution potential. And I think your producer showed some of it, and we are doing it for, almost all the crops. And we did, like this is for sorghum, for example. When you look at the food pollution potential of these districts, meaning that these are districts that fall within the first 10 districts that are leading producers of sorghum. What is their proportion of production in the entire scheme of affairs as far as sorghum production is concerned? Emefa, we have a humongous 11.45%, meaning that these districts, their potential to pollute Ghana's sorghum, that is the beans that you use for your, how do I call it? So the food that we use for, I think they use it for tiozafi and for a host of other dishes, yes. So these food, if you are eating sorghum, the potential that the sorghum has been contaminated is about 11.45%. So out of if you have, let's say, 100 kilograms or let's say 100 grams of sorghum that you are going to eat, mind you, about 12 grams of the 100 grams is likely polluted as a result of galamsey activities.
Okay.
We've done that for corn. And for corn also, we can tell you that what we call the national food pollution potential is around 5.4%. So it means that if you take 100 grams of corn, if you're going to eat 100 grams of corn by way of making, let's say, banku or whatever food that you're going to make out of the corn, about 6 grams of that 100 grams is likely to be polluted because the corn could be coming from these galamsey endemic areas that we've mapped, right? So this is a very serious matter, that our food system, first of all, we've established that crops have the potential to take up the heavy metals. And secondly, we've been able to trace that most of the top 10 producers of these foods, some of them are galamsey endemic areas, which means that they are likely to pollute your food system by a certain margin or a certain percentage.
Sulemana, would leave it here for now and definitely make time to go through the entire study and your findings. But that's a situation of doom and gloom. If indeed our crops are able to take up these heavy metals, we should be concerned. The more reason why the hashtag is still on No to Galamsey. And in the last few days, we've been hearing from every institution that there is. We've heard from the Ghana Atomic Energy, we've heard from the CSIR, Aquaculture Group, the fisher folks, amongst others, all raising concerns about this, galamsey menace, and something ought to be done about it immediately. Maybe I'll stay on Zoom and then I'll come to the studio and wrap up on this. Dr. Angela Gabnabwaji, if you're still with us, maybe in wrapping up on the issue about No to Galamsey, since the calls increased or intensified, are you happy with how government has handled this particular issue, even though ultimatums have been given and yet to elapse in terms of declaring a state of emergency?
Emefa, I don't even know why we are talking about this. I think, properly speaking, we should all be on the streets by now. And it isn't because we don't like the government. It is because by now we should have a state of emergency declared concerning galamsey. The existential threat is so real. We don't realize that we are actually breaking almost every known human rights provision in our constitution by galamsey. Apart from probably political rights, almost every one of those rights that we have put in our own constitution, the nation is breaking those rights. Children are leaving school to do galamsey. And even children who are not in galamsey areas are transporting themselves into galamsey areas to do galamsey. Women are being sexually molested, abused, used in galamsey areas because they are at the bottom of that whole chain of supply, doing koli and being exploited because of their poverty. Galamsey, even the criminal dimensions of it is baffling. We should stop talking about it. We should all be on the streets. And it isn't a demonstration against the government, but against inaction. By now, we should have a state of emergency declared. My mom at 90-something lost her farm because it was taken away by galamseyers. I lost a nephew-in-law through galamsey. It's very close to home. And that's all we can say about it. I'm really tired of talking about this. I'm sure everybody should be at this place now talking about galamsey. That emergency, the state of emergency must be declared.
Is Bashiratu still with us? Maybe so I wrap up on Zoom, then I come to the studio. Okay, so Bashiratu is still with us. You've also had it? Okay. Bashiratu, if you can unmute, then we can wrap up with you. Okay, that's up here.
Thank you, Emefa. Okay. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear now.
Thank you so much. I think, like Angela mentioned, the galamsey issue is not just an issue for just a section of Ghanaians. It's an issue that affects everyone, devoid of where you are, which position you are in power, what class you are in society, what job you do, and everything. Because their lives at risk, and whether directly or indirectly, we are all taking a hit of whatever the repercussions of galamsey is in Ghana. Now, I like that Dr. Sulemana mentioned the issue of security. My union, the Agricultural Workers Union of TU, have been having cases where farmers are giving out their land to galamseyers, not because they want to, but they are coercive means where they get lands that are they get farms that are surrounding your farm, and they get all those farms, and you have no access to your farms. In the end, farmers are forced to give up their own land to these galamseyers. There's also the issue of safety and health of workers, of community, the environment we are polluting, and otherwise. Even in instances where we are dealing with multinational corporations and they are doing responsible mining, we still have issues of safety and health, talk less of an unregulated mining. So we are dealing with issues around women's biological and reproductive rights, women's ability to get pregnant, miscarriages, irregular menstrual cycle, men becoming impotent. You know, there are a host of issues that we are dealing with, even on site where we have responsible mining with multinational corporations, or even in agricultural production. Talk less of instances where we have people using chemicals that are banned, and we are all being exposed to such chemicals. We have women who are getting pregnant and delivering prematurely. You know, we are women who have become barren as a result of coming into contact with certain chemicals that are being used on site. And this is unregulated. We have seen videos of children who are playing in rivers that are polluted. Women going there to fetch water, and the repercussion trickling down to everybody at the end of the day. And I think that the economic burden, we are also not talking about it much, because at the end of the day, if government decides to say that, well, we are reclaiming the land, we are putting systems in place, we are doing this, we are doing, it's still going to be about money. Money that could have been channeled into doing something beneficial. We have sat and looked on for people to abuse the environment, for people to do what they are not supposed to do. Law enforcement agencies do not also have the capacity, because in most of the instances, they have no resources or limited resources in that regards to fight it. You know. Then finally, let me talk about the issue of cocoa and say that in the past, we have had an instance as a country where the European Union market nearly blacklisted Ghana's cocoa because they claimed that Ghana was using child labor to produce. It took a lot of work to fight this for Ghana to get back to the EU market. We know that our fear, one of our major fears, is for us not to get to this point again, where galamsey becomes the reason why our cocoa is banned from entering international markets. What are we going to be doing with it? Because in any case, we have issues with processing cocoa and using it for something else in our own country. So if we are having some of these issues coming up, we all have a responsibility as Ghanaians to speak up. And if you travel via airline and you are traveling from Accra to Takoradi, you will cry, Emefa. Yeah. When you look down through your window, it is not a sight to behold. Okay. It is so pathetic what is happening to our environment, what is happening to us as a nation. And currently, water is even expensive. Because how much is a sachet of water for the ordinary Ghanaian? How much is a bottle of water for the ordinary Ghanaians? So if we are heading to a time where we have to buy water more expensive than it is now, it means that nobody is safe in this country. Then finally, let me say this, that Emefa, it is important for us to distinguish between artisanal small-scale mining and galamsey, so that we do not end up collapsing the whole economy. Because artisanal small-scale miners have been doing their work for a very long time, and they have coexisted with other sectors within the same enclaves, and nothing has happened.
Okay.
But if we are boxing artisanal small-scale miners and galamseyers together, I think we are also headed for Zoom.
Okay.
Because in the end, we may end up taking people out of their livelihood, which is going to be another burden on the country. Thank you.
I'm grateful. And of course, my biases have shown when it comes to the female submissions. But let me come into the studios so we can wrap up on this. I think I'll give Kofi Adams the final word on this particular issue. Because there are questions about what the legislature is also hoping to do to end the fight.
No, I think everybody is raising concern because we've reached a point where I don't think government has control anymore. Yeah. This community mining scheme is probably even made it worse because we just don't have the capacity to regulate the sector, and it's getting worse. So there has to be a way in which we put a break to try and sort ourselves out. So we cannot keep the pollution going because, you know, as all the scientists are showing, you cannot boil the water, you know, to get rid of it. No. I mean, these are heavy metals, and it's already reached our taps. I mean, you know, our food. People think it's so far away from Accra. I was just looking at some of the studies. I think CSRI on the white voter and so on and so forth. Yeah. It's already an environmental disaster for us. So if there's any reason at all, I mean, I know there's a lot of the elections and politics. That's what some politicians are thinking about when they are thinking about livelihoods of people and all of those things. The same people that they are talking about the livelihoods, those same people are going to get sick. They are, you know, the kinds of things that they are consuming in those places, the health impacts on their life, all the money that they are getting, they'll be dead in a couple of years. It's not in their interest to continue to do the galamsey that they are doing. So I think government has a responsibility. The society is saying we have to put a break and do something about this now. Okay. And I think this quivering that government is doing is unsure. The science is there. Everybody is screaming that we need to take action. No. And I think government needs to be decisive. We cannot continually hold on to politics and kill ourselves. I mean, I don't know how that is a choice. How can that be a moral choice for us? Okay. So we are all calling on government that this is a time to take, that's the responsibility of government, to make a break. Forest mining, all those things has to stop, and so that we can sort ourselves out. And if what we need to put breaks, we have to put in place now and not later.
Mr. Kofi Adams.
Well, it's very clear. The fears being expressed by panelists is already here with us. Yes. And we must not continue to pretend and think that we are not facing those challenges. There's already food crisis situation in many of these communities. Yeah. They now must import foods that they used to get from the community. You can no longer get contumely and all those things that were growing naturally. Once you clear the area, it's not happening. They are not cultivating. We are losing cocoa farmlands, and so it's even impacting more negatively on the economy. Yeah. When I hear people say, oh, because so many persons are employed within the mining area, you don't know how many jobs you are losing by engaging in this act. So let's do proper and real analysis. But I have received a word from our leader and his commitment that this whole LI 2462, which allows mining in the forest reserves, will be one of the things that will be done away with immediately because it is improper. I have spoken to colleagues in Parliament who were on the Mines and Energy Committee and also Lands and Natural Resource Committee. This LI did not pass through them. Okay. They smuggled the LI through the Environmental Committee, which until just this LI, they were not the ones that dealt with what? Mining-related issues. They used EPA to sponsor this LI, and it went through the Environmental Committee, where not much... The Environmental
Committee had some members there.
Well, what I'm saying is that because they have not been looking at all the necessary laws previously, sometimes the linkage was not there. Okay. And you see, Parliament is like that. Not all the time would you have all members looking at all the issues. Some of them pass through before even we get to know and then discussions picks up. So this is one such LI that came through a committee that normally was not dealing with some of these issues. But it must be repealed. And the whole mining system, let's relook at it. Let's suspend it for me for some time. I don't agree with one of the speakers who said the military, we don't have the capacity, security-wise, to be able to deal. It is the will, that's what we need.
Okay.
We have enough men that if truly we want them to work and we supervise them, we can deal with this situation.
Okay, so for you think that the military should move in?
I believe that we can do it.
Okay.
I believe we can do it. Okay. We have the capacity. It is the will. It's the will that is not there. Because we say it, we move them, then we, the politicians, the big people, we go and take over the sites and be doing it.
It's the politicians that are
also... The government has responsibility.
Okay.
The government has responsibility, whether it is PPP that is doing UGM, PNC, NDC, MPP, government has a responsibility to safeguard all of us.
For now, we are grateful, and the hashtag No to Galamsey is still on, and this is how we wrap up today's edition of Newsfile. I've been sitting in for Samson Ladia Yenene. I am Emefa Apawu. Many thanks to my guests, Dr. Bosman Asai, Dr. Kujepumpuni Asante, Dr. Angela Jamnabwaji, Bashira Tukamau, Mr. Kofi Adams, Evans Nemako, and of course, Suleiman Aisi for also joining us. Thank you so much for making time to be part of today's edition. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. For our radio audience, please stay for the midday news.